to Box Free with Stephanie. Today I want to show you how to make some basic foods with simple ingredients from scratch. And I hope you discover cooking box free is fast and delicious. So let's cook together. Today we're going to make Anadama bread, which is like a New England bread from the 1800s or something, and maybe originally from England. But it's really this dense, dark loaf of bread that's just really good. I don't know, I just discovered it, so I want to make it for you guys. So the first thing I'm going to do is do a 1/4 cup of cornmeal. So the funky thing about it, it has cornmeal and molasses in it. So it's just a really beautiful color and a very nice dense bread. So I need a 1/4 cup of cornmeal, and I'm going to add 1/2 cup of water. So I have actually 1.5 cups, so I'm going to pour, well, I guess I could do 2/4 cup. But anyway, I was going to pour until I got to a cup. Like, I don't ever do it this way, but whatever. Okay, and then I'm just going to stir this. I've got my pan heating over here. I want to boil 1/2 cup of water, so I better actually just measure this out a little bit better. And I want this to come to a boil, and then I'm basically going to make like a polenta, which is like a cornmeal mush. And I don't know if you could skip this part. I just discovered this bread, so I haven't seen like a ton of recipes, and I haven't cooked it a bunch myself, like over and over and over the way some of my other recipes I have. But I don't know, my recipe says to do this, and I like it, so you could probably just manipulate and change it the way you want to. And I'm going to use my bread machine, which is kind of cheating, but like I'm going to use my resources if I can. So anyway, I didn't think it would work in my bread machine because the dough is super stiff and really hard almost, which makes it very easy, because if you had to do all that kneading by hand, it'd be a little bit of a workout and like worth it, but it's going to be worth it. But my point is that I like to do the polenta style of cornmeal. I just like to cook my cornmeal. So all I'm doing here is basically kind of getting my dried cornmeal used to my water, and then I'm going to add it to my boiling water, and that will make it nice and hot. And then I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of butter and let that butter melt, and then I'm going to add molasses. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, so we'll just kind of see. But I'm going to put it in my bread machine and make sure, I'm going to watch it for the first 15 minutes and make sure that it actually isn't too hard, because a couple times it's like knocking really loud and all that. So my water is almost boiling, and I think that's going to be good enough, because again, you just want to kind of cook this cornmeal to become, you know, like I call it the northern grits, you know, like we don't have grits up here, but I feel like cornmeal and polenta kind of is like that a little bit in a weird, wacky way. So, okay, so I just dumped in my 1/4 cup of cornmeal with 1/2 cup of water, and then I had 1/2 cup in here. So now if you're keeping track, we're up to 1 cup of water, and this is going to make 1 loaf, and I'm going to use 2.5 cups of flour plus a little bit of cornmeal. So that's about right. If you're making a 1 loaf, I mean a 1 pound loaf of bread or 1 loaf, then you basically use like 2 or 3 cups of flour and like 1 cup of liquid. So that's what we're doing. So I'm just going to cook this a little bit here until it gets thick like polenta. And in the meantime, I'm going to pour my molasses, because that's going to take a while. I'm almost out, so it's going to come all the way from the bottom. But I need a 1/4 cup of molasses, and I use the dark molasses. So, I was hoping I'm going to have enough. So anyway, I do get this nice caramel, rich brown color with this bread. I'm probably going to have to open my new molasses. And my cornmeal is now cooking, of course. But, so I'm just going to stir that while I'm holding my molasses over the measuring spoon and see if I can actually make this work. But I'm going to need my new molasses. So I'm going to have to get in the cupboard in a second. All right, so hang on. I got to dig this out, because I thought I'd have a 1/4 cup, but I don't, and I really do want the full 1/4 cup. So right here, I got another jar of molasses unsulfured original. And now, I don't know if you can see, this is like really bubbling and getting very thick. And that's what I was going for. It just makes me feel better knowing my cornmeal is cooked. And like I know you make cornmeal with raw cornmeal all the time, but so that's what I'm going for. See how it's almost like a oatmeal consistency now? So that's what I wanted. So now I'm going to turn my heat off. Actually, I'm going to take it off the heat completely because I don't really want it to cook like forever. I don't want it to get too burned or anything. So now I'm going to add my 2 tablespoons of butter so that my butter can melt, basically. So 1, 2, we're going to say. All right, and you could maybe add this whenever, but I don't know, for some reason I just add it at the end. So I'm going to let this just kind of sit and melt. I maybe should have chopped it up a little bit because it's kind of a little bit hard. I just took it out of the fridge because I didn't have enough in my butter dish, but that's all right. It'll all work out. I got my slow molasses here, and that's going to, well, actually it's not going to take time. This is a brand new jar. I was going to say it's going to be slow as molasses, so I got time. Whoa! Whew! That would be messy if I spill. I don't really want to spill it. Okay, I'm going to hold it over my cornmeal because I can dump it in there if I get, look at that's like just almost a huge mess. Okay, and have you ever eaten like raw molasses? It's really kind of different, but not so bad. It's like just a strong taste. So anyway, okay, so my butter is almost melted. So because this is such a mess, I'm going to just dump it in. Most times I dump my molasses into my bread machine and, you know, do it like a separate ingredient, but it doesn't matter. And you just have to get it in there. And because I had such a overflow, almost overflow on my measuring cup, I don't want to have to try to open that up and get it in there. So I'm going to just put it in here and it's fine. You can just do whatever you want. However you're cooking, it all works out. I mean, it really usually does. Okay, so now I have in here 1/4 cup of molasses with my 2 tablespoons of butter, and I'm going to get ready to put this in my bread machine. So this is basically the liquid part that's going to be used in my bread machine, and it's a little bit hot, of course. I mean, it's not that bad. Oh, I know what I'm going to do. This is what I did last time, and I think what I try to do every time. I'm going to dump this in here just because my pan is hot and holding all this heat. And I do want this to cool down a little bit before I put it into my bread machine. I don't really know what would happen if it was really crazy hot, but my original recipe said to cool this until it's tepid. So we're going to give it just a couple minutes to become tepid, and then we'll put it in our machine. So I think I'm done with this. Okay, so you can still see I have teeny little chunks of butter, I think, in there. I'm hoping that's what that is instead of cornmeal. All right, so we're going to set this aside and kind of just let it cool. And then we're going to add the rest of our ingredients. So if you don't have a bread machine, they are really handy. I really do like it. So I just have to make sure I've done everything right. Oh, and I have to get my yeast out. Okay, so I did 1/4 cup of cornmeal, 1/2 cup of water, then another 1/2 cup of water. I need 1/2 teaspoon of salt. That's what I'm missing for sure. So, whoopsie, we're going to call that good. Put that in there. All right, and then because I don't like to add flour right to the first ingredient in my bread machine, I want this to be in there first. So, I'm going to kind of get everything ready really quick, and then I'm going to dump that in and then add my flour. I don't know, my bread machine always says to put the wet ingredients and then the dry ingredients, so I don't really want to put flour on the very, very bottom. So that means I'm going to call this tepid enough. I'm going to stir it just another second here to kind of get any other heat out that I can. But whatever, it doesn't look like it's steaming very much, so we're going to just call that good. So that kind of makes a bunch of cornmeal, really. I mean, like that was a solid bowl of cornmeal that you could probably just eat, actually, for breakfast if you wanted. But we don't want to. Okay, so in here is all my liquid stuff. Now I'm going to do my flour. So I'm going to do 2½ cups. And I think the original recipe called for 3, and I can't remember why. Oh, no, it was like a double loaf, and it called for like 5 to 6½. So whatever. I just started with 2½, and it seems to work. But I am going to have water ready. So that's 2.5. I'm calling that good. So even though I'm supposed to be so precise with my flour, I don't always do it that way because you can just kind of wait and see what happens in your machine. All right, so now I need 1.5 teaspoons of yeast, which is kind of a decent amount, but you want it to be a nice risen bread. And then I'm going to do 1/2 teaspoon of sugar just to give that yeast something to work with, which maybe I don't need in this one because I've got the molasses, but again, my old-time recipe calls for it, so I'm doing it. All right, and that's it. The hardest thing is just making the polenta, kind of. So now I'm going to get this ready to put in my bread machine, lock it in, plug it in, and then I'm going to set it on the dough setting. And then, okay. So now I'm going to kind of wait because I want to listen to my dough and make sure that it's not getting too hard. So this is going to knead for like 5 minutes and rest for 7 minutes and then knead for like 10 minutes. And that's when I'm going to come back and check it with you guys. So we'll be back in just a couple minutes. Okay, so it's only been, I think, like 2 minutes, but I want to show you what's inside my bread machine so you can see what this dough is like. Because it's such a stiff, dry dough, it looks really bizarre in the bread machine. And then I've got a little bowl of water here that if I need to add a tablespoon, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to show you what my dough looks like inside. So there you can see how it's really kind of crumbly and a little bit all separate pieces, and that's kind of okay at this point. So we just are going to watch it another minute. So while it's so kind of crumbly and stuff, I'm going to grab a soft spatula and just make sure that all the stuff that's sticking on the side is getting mixed in. And then when you feel it, this is what it looks like right now. It's very stiff, and that's what you're going for. So I have not added my extra tablespoon of water. I'm going to wait just a couple minutes longer because I don't want to add too much water if I don't need it. Okay, so now it's kind of into one clump and it's starting to be really thick and hard for my machine to work. So it's all kind of one big ball like this, and that's okay. But I think what I'm going to do is add my extra tablespoon of water, or I'm going to get it out anyway. So like here's my tablespoon of water. I'm going to dump half of it in. And what I'm doing is trying to get my dough to become one big blob, which it is, but a little bit softer for my machine to keep working it. So now it's a little more gummy. So I have to wait just a couple more minutes to see if I should add the extra 1/2 tablespoon. So we'll be right back. Okay, it's been like another minute or two, and now my dough is definitely all together. And I guess I always get a little paranoid. I always want it to be moister than drier. So hopefully you can see inside from the other angle here, and it's just kind of a very stiff dough. When you touch it, it's a little bit tacky and stiff. So I'm gonna go ahead and add my extra 1/2 tablespoon because I feel like that's what's made it work for me in the past. So now you can see my machine is like just kind of going nuts because it has this extra water, and so it is just like such a dry ball, and I'm really hoping that it all works out, but it really does. So if you were not using a bread machine, you would just be kneading this right now for like 10 minutes. You'd have to knead it, and it can be really tacky because of the molasses and the cornmeal and stuff, but you don't want to put too much flour in it. This isn't really a dry loaf because you want that moisture. So now my machine's going to sit for like 7 minutes, and then it's going to knead for 15 minutes, and then it's going to rise for like 45 minutes, and then we'll come back and put it in our bread pans. Okay, so I'll be back in about 45 or no, like an hour. I have to wait for an hour now. Okay, we'll be back. Okay, we are back to finish off our Anadama bread. It looks absolutely perfect in my bread machine. I just tell you, bread machines are just awesome. So I'm going to pull it out, and maybe you guys can see how beautiful it already looks. Oh my gosh, it's just a gorgeous color. So let me just unplug this, push it out of the way. So this was on the dough setting. I don't know if I said that before. And you know what? I need to take this ring off because I don't want it to get all full of dough while I'm kneading. So now what I'm going to do, like all bread, you let it rise once and you punch it down, then you put it in the pan, let it rise again. So I'm going to take this out And it's a little bit tacky, but it's like perfect. I mean, oh my gosh, it's just so fun, and it just smells really lovely. Okay, so see how it's a little bit tacky on my fingers? That's okay. I'm gonna do, I don't know, I can't help it. I'm gonna do just a little bit of oil so I don't have to have so much tackiness. And I'm just gonna basically work it to get the air out of it, just like that. And now if you can hear it, hear those little squeaks? There weren't too many of them. Okay, so now this could be one big loaf pan, but I like to do little minis, I guess. I don't know, I just like the shape of those sometimes. So I'm going to kind of cut it into thirds, and this does not look very even. There's a nice dog hair. Eesh. So I'm going to cut a little bit more off here. You can just rip it too, whatever. I don't know why I'm cutting it. Anyway, you just have to separate it into 3. So like those look relatively even, just because you want them to be the same so that they all bake the same. That's the concern with the evenness. It doesn't really matter. Oh, and I need to spray my pan. So whether you do the spray here or like actually use a brush with butter. I used to do it that way a lot. And I kind of got lazy and I started using the spray. So you can see this one has all this little like stretched out dough right here, and I'm just going to leave it like that because I think when it rises up it'll look really cool. It'll be kind of a nice top. It won't be like perfectly smooth. It'll have that rustic look to it, which I think it's happening because I'm pulling it apart like this. See, watch, you can see they all come up when I roll it over like that. So if you don't want that, you can just kind of roll it out so that it's really pretty and smooth, and then you make that your top. So like that's much smoother. So we'll put this in our second loaf. And see, these aren't like perfectly sized anyway. This one is still just a little bit bigger. And I got air bubbles there and an air bubble here I can see, so I'm just going to pop those. And I don't really know if you have to pop them, but I think it's just good to get the air. There's another big air pocket in there. You get it out on the first rise so that you have more air to fluff up on your second. Oh my gosh, look at all those air pockets. I can't keep those in there because then I don't think they're going to look good. They're going to have the big holes. Like I just had a French loaf that I got from the store, and it was like a huge hole in the middle of your little bread. It was kind of crazy. So I think that's what you're trying to avoid. But I'm not a professional, so I'm not really sure. Wow, this looks really little. Look how little that is. Okay, this is just not gonna work. So I'm gonna make this one bigger. The beauty of dough is you can just manipulate it until you think it's ready. So that one was just too small, and it would bake up too much and get too brown before my others were ready. Okay, and now I got that other kind of rustic look. Let's see if I can find a nice pretty top for this one. All right, that's not looking too bad. Okay, and let's see if these are a little more sized right. Like you wouldn't want this to be your top because it's all like wrinkly and I don't know, just kind of looks silly, funny. But this is a nice top. So we're gonna pop that in there, pop that in there. Now they're almost all the same size, which is perfect. So you want them to be a little like this because then they should double in size and they should be just about perfect when they're baked. I made 2 loaves out of these the last time, and they were ridiculously high. Oh my God, I was just cracking up. They were seriously like this tall, like the biggest mini loaf I've ever seen. It was really pretty funny. So I'm gonna do 3, and then I think they'll be just perfect size. So now I'm gonna put these in my oven. I have it warmed up just a teeny tiny bit so that they'll rise a little bit faster. We're gonna wait for these to double in size, and then we'll come back and bake them. So I'll be back in about 20, 30, 40 minutes. Whenever these are double, we'll be back. Okay, we are back, and it looks as if my bread has baked. It is absolutely gorgeous. I wish I could like take it out right now, but this is just the second rising. So it has been in the oven, like my little warm oven, just super light warm, not like 200 degrees or anything. Anyway, it's been rising for 30 minutes. So I just think it looks absolutely gorgeous. So now it's going to rise even more as it bakes, and hopefully I won't end up with these giant mini loaves, but Oh my God, it just looks so perfect. I just can't even believe it. I love it. So I'm super excited to see what it looks like. So I'm gonna let my oven preheat just a tad longer to get to 350, and I'm gonna set my timer for 20 minutes, and then I'm gonna check it every 5 minutes because I think it might take 30 minutes. But it's just so exciting. They're so beautiful. Okay, so I'm gonna put them in the oven, and then we'll be back in like 20 to 30 minutes, and then we'll cut them open and we'll eat it, and it's gonna be delicious. All right, we'll see you soon. We are back. It's been about 30 minutes since I put my Anadama bread in the oven, and it looks just gorgeous. So I'll show you what it looks like. It's just absolutely perfect, isn't it? Oh my gosh, I can't wait. Okay, so, whoopsie, I put this on the wrong thing. I gotta put this over here. Oh, and I have a little bit of water in here whenever I have an empty spot like that. I always feel like I have to put some water in it or something to make sure it doesn't, I don't know, dry it out or something. But I gotta dump this water out quick, hang on. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to pop out my beautiful loaves. Hopefully, well, this is like really hot. I should let it cool for a second. I always get like super excited and want to just take everything out right away. Okay, so Anadama bread, I didn't even tell you guys my story yet. I was at this restaurant and I had some like curry squash coconut soup, and it came with Anadama bread, and I was like, well, whatever, I'll just get it because that's what I'm getting. So I got it. It was like this really golden, thick, dense bread that I thought was really good. And like the next week I'm at my Auntie Lori's house, and she was talking about, we were talking about bread, and I told her how I had this Anadama bread, and I didn't really know what it was. And then like a half hour later, we were talking about cooking probably still, and she pulls out my Grandma Shirley's big book of like a bunch of recipes because she loved collecting recipes just like my mom and my aunt both do. And anyway, so in there I see this recipe for Anadama bread, and I didn't even know what it was until a week ago. I mean, a little while longer, but anyway, recently, ouch, that's hot. Woo, that's really hot. So anyway, in my grandma's cookbook was this recipe for Anadama bread, so I had to try it, and then I used my bread machine. Of course, you know, the recipe didn't have a bread machine because it was probably 20 years old. And it was just perfect. So now I'm making it, and it's just, I don't know, it's a really different kind of bread, so you should try it and see if you like it. This is all really, really hot. I really should let it cool like a good 5 minutes, but I'm not going to because this is a show, and we're just going to cut one and show you what it looks like, even though it's like crazy hot. And that means it'll be like super soft. So once it cools 10 minutes, it'll be much better to handle and stuff, but I just want to show you what it looks like. So I'm just going to cut one piece, and you definitely want serrated blades when you're cutting nice bread like this that you can cut through. I mean, this is so hot I can't even touch it. This is crazy. But we're just going to do it because you're going to see what it looks like. And it's just lovely. Oh my gosh. Look at that. So like, it's so beautiful. It's this gorgeous golden color with no artificial colorings. That all comes from the molasses, and it's got the cornmeal in it. So you can see teeny tiny little specks of yellow if you look really hard, or I don't know, maybe that's not what I'm seeing, but I feel like I can. It's so good. So of course we're going to slab on some butter. Oh, and I did make French toast with this, and it was really good. I mean, like super dense, and I made nice thick slices. But if you like that kind of bread for French toast, it was really good. And this has, I mean, I don't know, you'd want to add raisins. You probably don't. You'd want to do the Pioneer Hobo bread for that instead. But let's just taste it because it's going to be so good. Mmm. 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 You got to try it. It's like sweet and dense, but kind of chewy. And it's nice and moist, you know, because it has so much of that cornmeal mush, polenta type thing. So there we have it, Anadama bread. So thank you very much for watching Box Free with Stephanie. I hope you like the show. I hope you make Anadama bread with the machine or without. And I hope you think it's just delicious. So I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for watching. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.